You're listening to DraftKings Network.
Welcome to the Big Suey, presented by DraftKings.
Why are you listening to this show?
The podcast that seems very similar to the other Dan Le Batard podcast.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to apologize for that.
In fact, the only difference seems to be this imaging.
I have been tempted in restaurants just walking past tables to grab somebody's fries that if they're just there. That hasn't happened to you guys?
I've done it.
And now, here's the marching man to nowhere, Fat Face, and the habitual liar.
I would like some assistance here navigating this Dolphins game, Stugotz, that is going to be on Friday. That this Thanksgiving is an unusual one in football. I am used to the Detroit Lions being a total afterthought. They're always bad. Someone's going to trample them. It doesn't matter.
Their game matters.
It doesn't matter. No, part of my Thanksgiving has not been Detroit football. It's that Detroit's going to make the football bad. My Thanksgiving football's, it's not just Thursday football. They need more rest. They shouldn't be out there at this point in the season after 3 days of rest. The football can be pretty bad on Thanksgiving, at least in part because Detroit's always involved in it.
Yeah, I am welcoming the refreshing change of pace in being able to see a good football team there. I mean, Packers-Lions, for the Packers to be the bad football team in that equation so quickly, this turnaround of Dan Campbell's, it's pretty impressive because normally this betting window was reserved for hoping to God Brandon Pettigrew can catch a touchdown. now you got several players on the field.
Old number 84. Spent so many Thanksgivings rooting for that guy.
Oh, my God. Dude, a time-honored tradition of betting $25 on Brandon Pettigrew to score a touchdown.
I don't think that people really understand, and maybe they will be taught this on Thanksgiving before we get to also the Dolphins, who have been a laughingstock for 20 years. They've been a regional team. They've not been a national team. This is the first time they've been a national team since, like, Ricky Williams was here. I think I've got that right. It's been a long time.
I'm trying to think if they were even a national team then.
Maybe not.
That was a good run that concluded with Wannstedt leaving, but that was... they were in the conversation.
I don't think it felt like this, though.
They were national when Nick Saban came in.
They were considered like a top 3, top 4 team in their own conference back then.
You've got the Dolphins debuting last night on Hard Knocks. They're a national team this year because of offense, because they're good at offense, because they have Tyreek Hill, and because people have taken interest in Tua.
Being a national storyline primarily because your offense has not been a thing since the early 90s.
So we'll get to the Dolphins in a second, but Stugotz asked me yesterday when we were leaving for some reason, Dan, are you going to watch that Barry Sanders documentary? And I am not interested in the Barry Sanders documentary. I have found Barry Sanders' play to be electric, his personality to not be, and that team ruined him and Calvin Johnson. They both quit. That's how bad the Lions have been. It's not just that they haven't been 8-2 since 1960s, Stugotz. 1960s, when people were going to baseball games in suits and fedoras. 1960s.
In my lifetime, I have a 4-year-old daughter. I am approaching my 40s. I have seen the Lions win one playoff game. And I don't really recall it, but Eric Kramer apparently made it to an NFC championship game.
He had a big game, yeah.
It was a little bit before my recollection of that.
Oh, Wayne Fonts?
Are the Lions in the same boat as the Dolphins? As this is the best it's been in decades?
No, the Lions are the worst of this.
But I'm saying right now, the way we feel about the Lions is as good as we have in decades.
Yes. For certain, yes. The Lions or the Jets. Those are the two, like, for fan bases that have been tortured over 40 years.
Dude's like, I want to get in here.
You know what? Earlier in the week, I let it slide because I mentioned the Browns, and he's like, you went to 2 AFC championships with Kozar.
You did.
You went to 2 AFC championships with Mark Sanchez.
So did you.
Dude, the Dolphins could make the argument that in my lifetime, the Jets have been better.
No, you cannot.
Dude, I remember
in terms of accomplishments.
Vinny
Testaverde, 2 Mark Sanchez. You've been within a game of the Super Bowl 3 times recently.
Really 4 if you want to count Richard Todd, A.J. Dewey, Shula put the sprinklers on, made the field wet, he cheated. We remember that game. Too soon?
I don't remember that game.
Wow.
You don't
What
remember?
year was that? 84, I think.
1970s.
It's a Lions.
I was
Then
born in 84.
Then it's the Browns, and your Jets are right there in that miserable conversation.
Okay, all right. Semantics.
What a sad argument we're having.
Well, he wants to be a bigger loser.
All of us are right now. No, I'm the biggest
He
loser.
wants that. Stugotz wants to be the biggest loser. We're like, no, it's Lions fans. They win. And Stugotz's like, no, I'm the biggest loser.
Dolphin fans are like, I can get in this game. Mike's like, Browns, what about us?
But I'm not doing it off of your lifetime. I'm doing it off of my lifetime. In my lifetime, the Dolphins have been good. They have.
I'd say us.
The Dolphins have made one player quit, Ricky Williams. The Detroit Lions have made two of their best players quit, Calvin Williams and Barry Sanders.
Calvin Johnson, Megatron.
Excuse me, Calvin Johnson. That is a fine.
Yeah.
The tall
So are you
guy,
watching the
tall
documentary?
guy in Detroit.
Are you watching this
said no,
documentary?
didn't
It's
Roy
Bye Bye.
Williams?
I'm not. It's Bye Bye Barry on Amazon Prime, and I'm not watching it. Although I saw 7 minutes of it last night, and
On mute.
then stopped watching it.
Huh.
I gave it 7 minutes, which
Really?
is
Just
How
gave
does
up.
how does a documentary lose you in 7 minutes?
Did you do the thing with your hands where you clap? I'm done with this.
like a blackjack
punt on
dealer
interviews,
leaving
you're like,
the
Where did they
table.
lose you?
I mean, I didn't go in with the most optimism, but then Barry Sanders, because he's not a great interview, wasn't.
So it's when Barry Sanders started talking?
Yeah, I mean
You gave up on a Barry Sanders
I
documentary.
thought you were.
Good part,
I
right?
thought you were going to give me in the first 7 minutes. I thought you were going to give me some of the stuff I wanted to
Hook
keep
me
me
in.
here. Nope, you did it exactly the way I thought you were
May I
going to do
ask
it.
you, what
you
is it
added some smoke to the situation. You put some video on it, but nope, it's not that interesting.
May I ask you what it is about the 90s Lions that you were looking forward to most about this documentary?
Well, this part. Thank you for asking.
How they broke two players?
Nope. I've got another part. Perhaps, Chris Code, even though you didn't live during this time either, your father, you remember, is famous for trading Dan Marino, the greatest offensive time that most appeared like this one for the Dolphins, for Scott Mitchell. After which, and I wish we could find this, he did a local television interview where they pixelated his face. In front of the Miami Herald building and altered his voice because he wrote a column trading Dan Marino because the Dolphins had Scott Mitchell.
Is it the most famous column in the history of this market?
Sports column, probably. Yes.
How about him?
Yes.
It's the last risk he took.
Yes, that it scarred him. But so now what's happened, Stugotz, is that very same Scott Mitchell is being quoted in the Detroit News. I just watched Bye Bye Barry on Amazon Prime. Again, this is someone that Greg Cody traded Dan Marino to make room for Scott Mitchell.
I'm glad it's not a different one. That would be strange.
Quote, it was not a very pleasant experience. I was Barry Sanders' teammates for 5 years. I had a front row seat to some of the most amazing plays in NFL history. He will never have an equal as a pure runner in the NFL. I could argue that there were several running backs that were more complete, but I won't.
What?
Barry was great. However, I am so tired of hearing how I was the reason that Barry Sanders never won a Super Bowl. I'm so tired of hearing how I was not a good quarterback. My only response is, F you all. That includes Eminem and Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels.
Yeah. All right, you just sold the hell out of this documentary. I was scanning my brain, and I think my very first football memory ever was a Lions adjacent memory. The paralysis of Mike Utley, I think, is my first vivid football memory.
Oh, that was in the first 7 minutes of what
I'm
I
in.
And you turned it off.
Well, this is what
Well,
happened.
Barry started talking.
Oh,
I actually
the nerve on his own documentary.
Roy, thank you for asking, because perhaps it wasn't just being bored by Barry Sanders talking that got me out. Perhaps, given what just flashed in my mind, it was just my moral conflict with all of this. They showed one of the starting lineups in Barry Sanders' first game, and at that time, Mike Utley's name was on the screen, and he was playing. He could walk. And now he's paralyzed. So maybe somewhere in there, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to check out.
Yeah, it's like 5-year-old me watching that and really confused as to what was happening. And now it's kind of become routine.
Paralysis?
Or at least more routine. But that was it's stark. That's crazy that my first football memory is a player getting paralyzed.
In, again, Lions football that wasn't any good 30 years before that and wouldn't be any good 30 years after that. Like that's why, Stugotz, I'm surprised to hear you. Like, I understand long-suffering Jets fans, but no, the Lions haven't been anywhere close to having a team that all of us look at and watch and say,
Fair.
yeah, that could be in the NFC Championship game. That has not happened in those uniforms or any Detroit uniforms for as long as I've lived. Not with Stafford. I mean, they didn't make Stafford quit, but they tried. They tried to make him quit. What the tattered remains of Stafford that won a Super Bowl as soon as he got out of Detroit?
In retrospect, that is one of the more fascinating NFL trades.
Good trade.
Yeah. I mean, the Lions won the trade.
It's not every day that you see two starting quarterbacks traded for one another. But the plan was, all right, we're just doing this to make the salaries work out, and they'll clearly move on from Goff. But Goff totally reshaping himself.
It's the rare trade where one team won the Super Bowl, but the other team won the trade.
Debatable.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What he
Long-term.
just
Like it,
did,
yeah.
you saw what just happened there, right, Chris Cody? He is so prisoner of the moment that the way that Jared Goff played in the last game, where he threw 3 interceptions but brought them back, means that the Lions won that trade, even though, yes, you remember correctly. I think maybe he forgot, even though we just said it.
No, I remember.
The Rams did win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, right.
He's been with this Goff take for about 2 years now. He's not going to let it go.
I mean, they have a quarterback, the Lions do, for the next 12 years. Stafford's going to be
slow
done
down.
in 3 years.
12 years?
Goff is good, man.
Dude,
How old is he?
They didn't just get Goff from that deal. Like, the total haul ended up being Goff, Laporta, who's been a really nice pickup, better than Brandon Pettigrew, some would
Don't
say.
bail him out on this.
Jamari-
He's saying strictly Jared Goff is why they won.
You have Gibbs, you have Pashal, like that.
Thank you.
Well, you've got a bonus
good.
God Bless Football coming out here today because Stugotz has, in fairness to Stugotz, he has been since the beginning, and I made fun of that trade like everybody made fun of that trade. Why are the Lions taking the Goff contract? That's clearly a McVay product. He's not going to be able to do it for Dan Campbell. Now, he has been good for them. They're also great at running the football, and they're going to stampede the Packers, who are bad at stopping the run, so they can just run the ball. But to see Goff be a surprise when he's leading them back to beat Chicago, and I expect it, even though he's thrown 3 interceptions, that I expect the Lions.
You trust Jared Goff to come back in that game.
I trust them to be good at offense.
You also trust the Bears to blow that game.
I trust the Lions to be good at offense, and they're running the ball. They have balance, and this might be the best Lions team of my lifetime. I've seen the one. I've seen all the others, and this one is better offensively than those, and I can't believe I'm saying that about Jared Goff.
It's a crazy notion to think when you project, and I know the Eagles just won a really impressive game at Arrowhead, a game that the Lions also won, might I remind you. It kind of looks like the Super Bowl is going to go through Detroit. Like, it's very likely that they have home field advantage and a first-round bye. They're going to be a game within a game of the Super Bowl. Just before the postseason gets underway.
I've got to say it to be viral. This is the best Detroit Lions team of my entire lifetime.
Hey, it's Mike here, and I want to talk to you about Miller Lite, because Miller Lite is the perfect beer for all occasions. But as the weather gets a little bit cooler, we get into something that's called football weather. And what goes with football? Miller time. So, you have football weather, you have football, and now you have the perfect beer to complement all these wonderful things coming together. Miller Lite is my favorite beer. It's my go-to. Anytime I'm watching football, it's what I go for immediately. If it's not around, I'm upset that it's not around. And it's only got 96 calories, folks, and 3.2 carbs per 12-ounce serving, with a smooth taste and a crisp, clean finish. You get the taste that you crave without the calories. Make it Miller time all season long. Get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/Dan, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces.
Kentucky Fried Chicken's 2 for $5 wraps are back. And they're even introducing a new mac and cheese chicken wrap. Are you kidding me? Mac and cheese in a wrap? 2 of my favorite things in the entire world. That is in addition to the classic and spicy slaw wraps. Creamy mac and cheese, a hand-breaded crispy chicken tender, and 3 cheese blend, all wrapped in a pillowy tortilla. God, do I love a pillowy tortilla. Order ahead on the app and cheer on tasty goodness with KFC's 2 for $5 wraps. It's finger looking good.
Don Le Batard.
Greg Cody of the Miami Herald is writing an article, and I'm reading in it. Moss Miami, sold out. Miami artists, Miami culture. And I'm reading Moss Miami is sold out. And I'm reading about Digital Podcast Network, and I'm reading about us, and I'm like, this is our dreams coming true.
Stugotz.
1,000 people come out, and we see the shipping container, and they're on a stage, and they're like rock stars. You and me both had tears in our eyes. We're like mom and dad of sentiment, and it's hard to get you to sentiment, man.
That was a very emotional moment for us to see those guys. I'm telling you guys, you were on stage. Dan and I were both crying. Are you guys aware of this? Crying.
Yeah,
like crocodile tears.
We believe
no, crocodile tears are fake. Crocodile tears are fake.
Amazing.
I thought they meant big.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Look at you, dressed as Meister Flintstone.
That's right. Total.
You know, there's a segment of the population that you speak to that have no idea who that is.
Some are calling him Fried Flintstone.
Just you, Chris.
You got a little gurgled laugh out of Joe Buck there. They are calling.
He didn't want to laugh too hard.
They are calling me Fried Flintstone. That is correct. Joe Buck is at the height of the industry. If he's not the best at what he does, he is one of the best.
Now make a stand. Say. If I'm not, then say I'm not. If I am, then say I am.
You are the best young person in the history
I'm 54.
No, wait a minute.
That's
please,
a fine.
Please stop yelling at me.
Is he the best or not?
My point is that as a child prodigy, no one has ever been better.
So he peaked. He failed, is what you're saying.
And
LeBron's done all right.
He has climbed in broadcasting. No one has done more earlier than Joe Buck. Come on, man.
Wow.
The resume is World Series and Super Bowls and everything important that's ever been broadcast before the age of 35, correct?
Yes. Yeah. It's a long time ago.
What have you done since? I mean,
figured out life and balance and everything else that gets you to happiness, right? Like that's
exactly right.
You conquered the vanity business, you conquered the stupidity, and now you have exactly the job you want built to your specifications.
It's actually really funny you say that, because I was thinking yesterday, because people keep asking me, do you miss baseball? And it has nothing to do with baseball. It's about getting to a point where, and I'm the luckiest guy in the world, and I admit that, but it's getting to the point where you don't feel the need to be on every broadcast and do everything, and you can step aside and watch other people do it and not freak out about it or get sad. So, whatever it is, whatever was extracted from my life, I miss certain aspects of it, but I enjoy what I get to do the way I get to do it.
$15 million a year also helps, Joe.
Yeah, no, that's not bad.
Right,
that's really, really a good part of it.
But Joe, I have to.
I'm on a yacht right now,
and that yacht's on another yacht that's on a submarine and a helicopter.
Yes, exactly.
Joe, you are the best I've ever seen. Okay, I am telling you.
Thank you, Stugotz. Thanks for taking a stand. We don't need 500 qualifiers,
man.
Mike and I were saying yesterday we don't want to go to the Manning cast because Buck and Aikman are so good.
Joe Buck knows how subjective this is. The five best people at this, we can have a real good argument about. He's one of them.
No, it's the most subjective thing in the world, and it's what drove Troy crazy at the beginning of our time together, because he was used to a scoreboard, and he was used to something telling him that game or that day he was better than the other side, and there's no scoreboard, and it's absolutely random who likes and who hates who. The old hate word, but it's as subjective as anything gets.
Joe, I want to talk to you about Monday night's game because I have been watching you for a long time, okay? A long time. And suddenly on Monday night, you became an offensive line expert. You and Aikman. I mean, it was weird. And not just offensive line. If I have to narrow it down, a center. You were, highlight packages of Jason Kelce. You guys were blown away by the fact that he pulls and he blocks. That's what he does for a living. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, how about poor Creed Humphrey, the Chiefs center? How about all the other centers sitting at home saying, hey, when Buck calls my game, he never points out me pulling and blocking.
Totally fair criticism.
That's it.
Totally
fair. I plead guilty to that. I watched the documentary. I bought the hype. I'm in love with the Kelsey brothers, both collectively and individually. Yeah, I'm bad. I mean, a lot of people don't know this, but I was a hefty offensive and defensive tackle on my high school football team, number 77. I can provide pictures and maybe one highlight from a tackle I made at Lutheran North.
Is it not on the yacht? You can't, right? Not
on the yacht. I don't have it readily available right now because most of my golden framed pictures are back in my palatial estate. But yeah, always, I, like John Madden, watch from the line out. Troy, being the quarterback, watches from the quarterback out toward the defense, which obviously he was involved with the center. So, I mean, it's only natural that we eventually, in our 22nd year, evolve into people who talk about center and guard play.
Well, you have the Vikings and Bears coming up this Monday. I want the same kind of treatment for Viking center Garrett Bradbury, okay?
It's going to happen. We will have at least 2 cameras isolated on Garrett Bradbury.
You need to point out that there's been a bias here that's been called out by Stugotz, who's always there to correct faulty journalism, that you guys have been compromised by fame. You're celebrating this Kelsey, this Jason Lumberjack Kelsey, who's 36 years old, and it is fairly amazing that someone that size moves that way. But there are 40 of those in the NFL.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. But there aren't 40 who have had their own documentaries. There aren't 40 who've got 3 little girls that are adorable, and one of which, Wyatt, I have a boy named Wyatt, was showing her center movement on video. There aren't any whose brother's dating Taylor Swift.
That's the one. That's the key.
A lot of them probably have kids.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Chris Cody's theorizing here that that Aikman doesn't like throwing the broadcast over to the Manning cast.
Oh, he hates it.
Cody thinks that Troy Aikman doesn't want any viewers lost and is bothered by the Mannings and is competing specifically with Peyton.
Moving on.
At any point during the halftime interview, were you like, why is Peyton yelling at me?
I mean, I feel like, and obviously this comes with every disclaimer. Actually, Peyton and I can show you on my phone, which is here on the yacht, within a yacht with me. He and I were texting last night. He sent me the piece he did on Peyton's Places with talking about Madden, which was phenomenal. But I'd like to think that if the roles were reversed, I'm not so sure that Peyton and Eli would be like, hey, we're doing all we can to keep this Jets game interesting, but you should see what's going on over there. And I mean, that's just counter to your own competitiveness, but it's obviously nothing personal. And I love the fact that we're all under the same roof and we all get one rating pushed together and all good. But yeah, it's, it's kind of a weird phenomenon, but all good.
No, and that rating is the biggest that Monday Night Football has had in 27 years. That the game that you just did is the biggest in the history of the network, and it was the biggest football game across all the networks. And in talking about this in the postgame show yesterday with Mike Ryan, I had always longed my entire life for alternate broadcasts that took things a little less seriously, did things a little less familiarly. You do the thing that broadcasts well the most professionally, but I've found myself longing for sillier, longing for more entertainment, and that number in that game shows, Mike Ryan was making the argument on behalf of, no, this broadcast team matters on those games. It makes them feel bigger.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, that's for other people to determine. I'm not going to be the one to say it, but I think the process starts before that when the schedule comes out. When the schedule came out and the NFL had a couple of golden tickets to hand out, one of them was Aaron Rodgers' first game as a Jet, which we got, and it lasted 14 seconds. And the other one was the rematch of this incredible Super Bowl with 2 great teams and stars all over the place. And we were lucky enough to get that one. And we're smart enough to know that stuff gets spread around every year but to get that, I think was really big for the network. So on that level, I think there's some interest there on the part of the NFL to funnel things our way. But beyond that, as you said, it's the most subjective thing in the world, and I don't get into all that stuff.
This is the first year with the Monday Night Football flex game. You're eligible now from here on out to swap any of the Monday night games on the schedule. Please don't do that with the Titans-Dolphins game, as we have a show event around that. But there's been a real reluctance to flex out of games due to large part with the New York teams being on primetime schedules, because the anticipation was that they'd have good seasons, but they ended up not having good seasons, and no one wants to lose that market. So my question to you is, do you actually think we'll see a game flex? Joe Burrow just got hurt. Bengals and Jaguars, a lot less interesting. Will we see the flex?
I don't think so. I don't think we will. Steve Ackles, our producer, and I would talk about it all the time. We would be in the list, on the list of people who would be notified the last to know. But I think the schedule's strong. And, there's always going to be one team that's not what everybody thought it was going to be. In the case of New York, both for different reasons have disappointed this season, but I think it's still New York. And in the case of a game we have in a couple of weeks, it's New York and Green Bay. That's a hard one to tap out of. You could make the case Kansas City, New England, but it's still Kansas City, and it's still Bill Belichick. I don't see, as I sit here, and nobody's asking me other than just tossing it around like we are, I don't see it happening. So not in 2023.
I've got a couple more questions here. I could talk to him a lot longer. He's super interesting, and in his book and elsewhere has been super vulnerable about the kind of growth that he has made later in his life. When you talk about the competition and all the competition, you came up through the vanity business. You had success very early. Broadcasters are competitive. Everybody wants to climb over each other. You've climbed to the top. It seems like the need for competition is something that you have left behind in a way that is healing for you.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's probably why I have a therapist on call and use that therapist when going through divorce and everything else in 2011 and dealing with my daughters who were just phenomenal during that process, and it didn't have to be that way. But I think you grow and you leave some of that childish stuff behind. I mean, what Al Michaels does, Jim Nantz does, Mike Tirico does, has absolutely nothing to do with me. What Kevin Burkhardt does has nothing to do with me doing my old job, or Joe Davis doing my old job. I root for those guys. And I mean, Al is the best FaceTimer of all time. Nobody FaceTimes. My kids don't FaceTime. The Kardashians do not FaceTime as much as Al Michaels. I couldn't hear that.
It's a drop. We play it whenever someone name drops. We call him a "Look at Me, Louie," because I FaceTime
for Al Michaels.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah. Wow, look at him. Yeah. Look at the circles the big man runs in. What do you mean?
Now I can't hear you.
For Al Michaels.
That's it.
I can't hear. I can't hear.
Again,
we lose the sound.
What?
That's unfortunate.
Damn Samson.
He also has.
Just ripped the shit. Can you say bad words on
Yes,
here?
you can.
You just ripped the shit out of me and did we lost audio?
You're on to us, Buck.
An old cheap trick.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I want to give you a second to think about it because I don't want to catch you off guard, but the Carissa Thompson thing that happened, I found myself arguing on behalf of Truth Matters. The Truth Matters. I'm not wanting anyone severely punished. I'm not chasing someone with a pitchfork. I'm not gathering with fellow sideline reporters to hunt someone down and make sure they lose their job. But you also can't make shit up. Like I'm not arguing anything controversial when I say you probably shouldn't do that in that job. So what was your take on
who disagrees with that?
I would assume a lot of people are disagreeing with the idea. What's the big deal? What's the crime? Come on. They go down there for
I think if you had Carissa on here, I think we just talked about growing up and we talked about, learning. And this was a reference to something that happened earlier in her career. And like you said, I think everybody's just in such a rush to go, we got you said something, and now, we're going to go back and they get the group gathered. And I understand that. I am married to Michelle Beisner, who is as hard a working person as I know, certainly harder than her husband in our family, and has risen from Broncos cheerleader to in-stadium entertainer, like at the Avs games and the Nuggets games, to ESPN to NFL Network prior to that. I know how hard that side of the fence works, and I understand why people would be upset. But I'm not the person in the crowd going, "Oh, you should lose this, lose that. You shouldn't." I think everybody grows, and I think we all. I've done it many times. You go on a show like this, you go on a show that exists at other places, and you want to entertain, and you want to be funny, and you want to be irreverent, and then it gets picked up. And then it's a little bit out of context, and then you're paying for it for X number of days, weeks, or maybe with your job.
I need your help here, though. Can you do it for me while I'm dressed as Fred Flintstone?
Right now. Yeah, let's do it,
Can
Joe.
you do the thing that
crazy.
we can clip unfairly
What did you make up?
out of context? Yes. You told us about the pot brownies. You've given up all of your vulnerabilities.
I think there's nothing left. I don't know that I have anything that I want to go, back in 1998 I was, but I'm not even going to say it because you're going to clip it.
Come on, but I'm dressed as Fred Flintstone.
No one will take it seriously, Joe.
No,
all eyes will be
growing and getting smarter and all that. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm not putting anything on tape, even kidding, because it'll be a headline that I scroll through in the New York Post app that says Joe Buck admits that. No, I'm not doing it.
Okay. Please stop yelling at me. I'm dressed as Fred Flintstone.
Don't get me. Now I'm sweating. I'm so mad.
Joe, his name is Garrett Bradbury, Viking center. Okay, I want a couple of highlights Monday night. I want to see
it's
you do it.
It's going to happen.
Okay, good.
I've got to let you go because he's got to get into other things. But at some point, I want to talk to you because I know you have thoughts on this, on when that angry crowd gathers. Because it feels a lot of times to me like people push back on that angry crowd more than they do on the crime that created the angry crowd because of how uncomfortable and unruly the angry crowd gets.
But not now.
Right. Not this time.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there. I've been there. I've faced the angry crowd. Throughout October, every crowd I faced was angry. So that's a different time in my life. So I don't have to worry about that angry crowd.
That's amazing to watch, that football loves you and baseball fans are so baseball fans that they would dissect and criticize every single thing about you.
Well, they don't want to hear the team that just did a home run against their team on national TV have the announcer go, "Oh, let's go." Nobody wants to hear that. They want to hear their hometown announcer go, and a fly ball into right, and that's going to go, and now our team is losing.
A lazy fly ball.
That is what they want. It's good seeing you, Joe. It always is. Thank you for making the time.
All right, guys. See ya.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Dan Le Batard.
Chris Cody does an impression. Just be careful.
Dangerous game here. This is a dangerous game.
I don't want to play this game.
No, he was saying, man, I could do such a great Kendrick Perkins.
No, I don't want to play this game.
He's like, man, I can talk just like him.
This is who we're going to trust with
you
this.
do it. Let's let Amin do it, I think.
Stugotz.
I think you could do it, Chris, because you did a great Charles Barkley. You're 1 for 1 there.
Did no one just hear the segment we just did with Amin? We cannot be taking
judgment is not the
counsel from the local drunk on whether or not you should do the impersonation of a black man stumbling over his words. Like, you don't see the bad judgment in that.
There was.
Moses Moody? Moody Moses? Moses?
Don't.
Moody?
You need that. It sounds worse.
Be careful, man.
We cannot do this. It's too close to the line. This is where the line is. Something legitimately funny can't be funny because we're scared our ginger's going to do something racist by accident.
Carry the hell on, Dan.
Rachel. Dan, the line is where we feel alive, though.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz.
Stugotz, it's steaming in here, and not just because I've got this blousy Flintstones thing on. Mike Ryan is a perfectionist who at times can careen in the red on unreasonable when things go wrong, and he is heated at our audio problems that have derailed David Sampson and now Joe Buck, and our general inability. He's yelling at a system. There's some sort of system he was screaming at his computer because it was very frustrating, but things are now under control. Soon, someone will use a jackhammer outside our doors or a fire alarm will go off. But for right now, we've got perfect audio conditions. And so, in the perfect audio conditions, Mike tries to trust the computer as we try to get this week's Useless Sound.
Hey, what's going on? I'm not here to talk to the fan base. I'm here to talk to my players, the locker room. I know that we give ourselves a chance to win every single week with the game plans that we have.
I wouldn't look at it as a failure. I look at it more as a series of unfortunate events.
These guys are a special group of guys, you know, and we had energy. These guys are coming off, they played 4 days ago, in a tough game, a disappointing loss, a fourth quarter loss. They didn't listen to any of what you all wrote, you know, they didn't pay attention to you. You know, they listened, and to us, not to you.
That's the guy who I entered the league with, you know, we've been bread and butter. Peanut butter and jelly, whatever you want to call it.
They finish each other's, sentences.
The only thing I'm really bummed about, I won't be able to play Fortnite. So it's the kind of thing I'm bummed about. I won't be able to play video games.
We'll learn from this. We'll do so while absorbing the L, because that's what you do in this thing, and we'll be back.
I think this game, man, it's the testament of who is gonna not blink and who's gonna just keep going.
Just really proud of our group, just in terms of, I feel like they are growing. They continue to battle. I feel like we're getting better.
Man, I was proud of the guys and the coaches. Nobody got frazzled. You know, we knew if we could just get the ball back in our court, we get a stop, score, you know, we could get some momentum back. But man, that's what I was proud of.
They did set the tone.
Pressure went up, our heart rate leveled out.
What we're going to do is we're going to evaluate everything we do, and we'll continue to do that.
We did some silly things, but it was good, obviously, to come out with a win.
Man, Steph Curry don't ever stop shooting. I'm gonna keep letting it ride.
They know I'm gonna keep firing it. That's just who I am. I'm gonna fire it to the guy who's open.
First of all, I think it's belief. Second of all, I think it's execution. And third of all, it's having a mentality that, we're gonna win the game.
Everyone has a part in wins and everyone has a part in losses. I think that this team does a great job of understanding that and has the right mindset.
I think they were on the same page. We were maybe off a tick.
I know we're disappointed with the loss, but I'm not discouraged about where the season's headed after this game.
It wasn't pretty. It wasn't, there was a lot of ugly moments in it. When you win games like we've won games, that builds a ton of character. And, kind of, I guess, character development mode with the games we've played and how we've won.
Proving myself every drive, every play, that I can be the guy for this team, and I have to earn it every single week.
You go one game at a time. You have to.
I'm learning how hard the NFL is and how hard it is to win.
It's a lot easier to play bad and win than it is to play bad and lose.
One man's misfortune in this business is another man's opportunity. We say that.
I actually went down there. I said, it just doesn't get any better than this. This is the moment this is what you want to be in right now.
I have full confidence, like I've told you, and like I've told you from the beginning, I have full confidence in our way of playing. Full confidence in myself as the play caller, and the way that we teach and the way that we scheme. Full confidence in that. We got to bring this group together and do it consistently, okay? And that's where it's at. So you can stop asking that question, okay? I'm going to be calling the defenses, okay? So we're clear. So you don't have to ask that again.
So we're clear is always said with menace, correct?
Yes.
Put it on the poll, please, Juju, at Batard Show. Is "so we're clear" always said with menace?
Man, I love Mike Tomlin. I really do. He's always learning, and he's always going to be back. And I believe him.
Always learning, never blinking. They should put it on T-shirts. Roy, is that what you were?
Never blinking or outgaining his opponent.
Got to absorb that L.
You got to absorb the L. You can't just lose. You got to absorb that L.
What you do in this business, Dan?
Russell Wilson's 3 things were pretty useless.
Yes, one of them was like the others. He ran out of gas.
Yeah, he very clearly only had 2 things, and then
but I already said the third thing is
caught up in the air.
I'm already here. I can't call timeout. The third thing sounds like belief. It's like you got to think you're going to win. Okay.
How did he possibly court a famous pop star?
That is a good question.
Like, what was that flirtatious period like? What did he say?
It was probably his era where he was doing like the sensual things. It was like what was it?
No,
Mr.
that was part of when he was already with
Mr.
Sierra. She made
Unlimited.
him more sensual.
She's like, ooh.
Yes.
You think he had that in his bag by himself? No way.
What was flirting like? I don't understand how this
robotic.
happened.
One would imagine.
Probably talking the way he did in those Mr. Unlimited videos.
Put it on the poll, please, at Batard Show. Russell Wilson as a flirt, robotic or romantic? What I hear in the Useless Sound, Dan Campbell talks from his balls. Like he talks, and
what'd you expect?
And Andy Reid, his voice it sounds like gravel or charcoal at the bottom of a barbecue pit. Like his voice sounds like football.
The Chiefs are filled with people that I don't even care what they say. When I hear Mahomes' voice and Andy Reid's voice, it's funny.
You're in, yeah.
You recognize them by their voices, and then a visual comes to you. And in Dan Campbell's case, it's very Detroit. God, how happy are those people with that coach? I think the only fans that are happier with their coach are Philadelphia fans with that meathead Sirianni.
He's great.
Show this video of him running off of the field in Kansas City after the Chiefs somehow are the worst second-half team offensively in all of football. There it is.
He said it from under the tunnel.
He did.
Say it out.
Say
in
it
front
outside.
Of the fans.
Also, do it in the Super Bowl.
Yes, correct. Let's see that again, though. I want you to see how he gets his knees into shouting at the bottom.
What was that?
Yeah, it's just him yelling for the cameras. They can't hear him. He's a meathead.
Almost like a mini squat he did. He was just like,
yes, he's a meathead.
It's like getting punched in the stomach. You got to kind of recoil is what it was. A little recoil.
But him and Campbell, both of them, Meathead Mountain. Football fans love those guys. A guy who shouts after he's beaten Kansas City on the road at the bottom of the floor where drunk Chiefs fans can't hear him because there's a lot of concrete between him and them, but he throws his knees into it.
Did you guys watch Hard Knocks last night?
We got to get to that, Billy.
I forgot about it.
The Dolphins have a Dan Campbell on their staff that hands out cakes.
All right, we got to get
really?
to that.
Cakes?
I got to tell you, though, I don't want this to go unnoticed in this video. You realize Sirianni is playing to the cameras when we realize that he doesn't know who he's talking to. We don't know, and so he says, Chiefs fans, in the event that you did not know who I was talking to.